Hello and welcome back to Light of the Logos. This is Cameron. Today I'm actually going to revisit something that I already made in a recent video of the debate between Andrew Wilson and Matt Dillahunty. After watching the video a few more times, some things that I noticed that I wanted to kind of touch on and talk about that I didn't actually touch on before. So we're going to look at this one more time. We're going to revisit it again, and I'm going to talk about some other things that I think are really pertinent. So let's go ahead and take a look at this here.
Let's kick it.
No, I don't think so. I'm not going to sit here and dignify the preparation that I went through and what people were here for.
You're so indignant.
Keep interrupting me.
I am.
Okay.
You're so indignant.
Would the moderator like to step in so that I can finish what I'm saying?
Please, Matt. How dare someone have an opposing worldview?
I'm not going to sit here and dignify what was supposed to be a debate about Christianity versus secular humanism, which one's better for the world.
Yes.
With someone who clearly showed up with an agenda that has nothing to do with that. Someone who refers...
So I think why Matt is, I think the heart of it, which he will not admit, but I think the heart of it, why he's actually frustrated with this, which is very rare for us to see with him. I think what Andrew Wilson did really well in his opening monologue and the arguments that he raised, what did he do a little bit different here than what most people do who talk to Matt Dillahunty? What did he do here that's a little bit different? I would say that what he did here was a little bit more clever, and what he did was he actually did the very thing that Matt does to theists and to Christians for the last however many decades he's been arguing against theism or Christianity. What Matt does and what most atheists do is they attempt to take this neutral, indifferent default position by claiming to be an atheist. And within the term atheist, the word a, which is a negation, theism. So the claim is that it's not a positive set of beliefs, it's a negation of beliefs. And we all have a negation of beliefs, right? If you don't believe in Santa Claus, it's not that the onus is on you to disprove Santa Claus. The onus is on the person who actually has the positive belief in Santa Claus and needs to prove Santa Claus. And so this same reasoning is applied to God. Well, you believe God, therefore the onus is on you to prove God. The onus is not on me to disprove God because I don't see any proof of God. Matt stands back, as most atheists do, and they stand back and they say, I'm going to be the judge. I'm the ultimate judge of this whole thing. And it's up to you, and the responsibility now lies on you to convince me otherwise. Convince me to be the theist. And so now the theist feels like they have this huge, massive, daunting task that, oh, okay, man, now I need to prove this. Well, I can't prove it. I can't like pull up a rock and be like, oh, there's God. And like, aha, I proved it. So then we start to talk about faith. Well, I just believe, I just have faith and emotions and feelings and blah, 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 blah. And Christians get caught in this circle, and the conversation goes nowhere, and the Christian feels defeated. And the whole thing is just a giant waste of time. That's typically the ridiculous cliche kind of scenario that have seen many times by people and Christians and theists who are not actually have given very much time and thought to these types of arguments and these types of interactions and discussions. Now, I would flip this entire thing on its head, and I would actually argue that the onus is not on the Christian to somehow prove God. That's not actually true. If you've been duped by that, then I'm sorry you've been duped by that. But you no longer have to be duped by that. The onus is on the Neo-Hindu or the atheist. The one who believes that we start from this oneness, the one who believes that we start from this eternal impersonal starting point to where everything is really just an illusion. Free will is just an illusion. Relationships are just an illusion. Logic, morality, everything is just an illusion. And everything is just ultimately self-created. This oneness, this great oneness just self-creates itself. It has self-created us. And it will eventually just dissolve us back into nothing to where we emerge again with the eternal nothingness. Again, this is Neo-Hinduism, which we now call atheism in our modern era. So if you take the camera and you zoom all the way out, this is the big picture of modern atheism. It's really just Neo-Hinduism in disguise. What that means then is that the onus is actually on the atheist or the Neo-Hindu. The onus is on them to prove that that worldview is true, because that is a positive set of claims. It is a positive set of claims. It is not merely just a negation of claims. It is a positive set. It's an affirmation of beliefs. It's an affirmation of faith. Within this Neo-Hindu paradigm, to claim that life comes from non-life, that's a positive claim. That morality comes from non-morality, that's a positive claim. That DNA coding comes from non-coding, that's a positive claim. that intelligence comes from non-intelligence. That's a positive claim. That logic comes from non-logic. That's a positive claim. Therefore, because you have all of these grand positive claims, you do not get to just grant yourself these things. You do not just get to hand yourself a get out of jail free card and grant yourself logic as if it can self-create. You do not get to just grant yourself morality as if it can self-create. You do not get to just grant yourself life as if it can just self-create. You do not get to just grant yourself DNA coding. And yes, even Greg Venter refers to it as code. So we can just skip that whole ridiculous argument of whether it's code or not. You do not get to just grant yourself coding. It does not self-create. Now, the atheist or the Neo-Hindu, because they are oneness and they believe in an ultimate impersonal starting point, and then everything ultimately terminates and ends in the impersonal and merges back with the impersonal eternal nothingness once again. It is therefore then, considering all this, up to the atheist and the Neo-Hindu to prove that all of these things can self-create. And guess what? How much evidence do we have right now, this very moment, with all of our scientific advances? How much evidence and proof do we have right now that any of these things have ever self-created? Zero. That's right. Mind blow, right? You haven't been challenged on this because you do not go to the end of your thought, because you have been hypnotized. You have been hypnotized and you have believed things to be more true than they really are. You've never challenged your presuppositions. You've never taken a look at your own assumptions. Maybe you are somebody like a lot of these silly atheists who are so preoccupied with thinking that the Christian or the theist is the one who needs to be the one who proves their worldview. And you never for a second had ever been challenged that actually it's you who, in fact, the Neo-Hindu, who needs to be the one that proves that all of these things can self-create. And in fact, you have zero evidence of any of it, that any of these things can self-create. And even if you do try to point out some type of evidence, well, guess what? I'm unconvinced. Don't we just love to be able to say Matt Dillahunty's favorite phrase? Well, I'm unconvinced. I'm unconvinced that life comes from non-life. I remain unconvinced, and I don't believe it's been sufficiently proven, that morality comes from non-morality, that logic comes from non-logic, that intelligence comes from non-intelligence, and that DNA coding comes from non-DNA coding, and I could go on with other things. I remain unconvinced. So let me circle back, full circle here, back to this debate with Matt Dillahunty and Andrew Wilson. Why is Matt upset right here? I personally believe the heart of it is because Andrew Wilson is placing the onus on Matt Dillahunty, forcing him to be the one who convinces Andrew that A can be non-A, that B can be non-B. In other words, that men can be women and that women can become men by simply just redefining things and redefining terms. Matt needs to be the one to convince Andrew that all of that is possible, that all of that is reasonable, that all of that is logical, and that all of that is healthy for flourishing humanity. Matt Dillahunty walked out of this debate because he's not used to being the one who has to defend his worldview. He's not used to being the one who has to defend his positive claims. His positive claim is that men can become women and women can become men. It is no longer a rational thing. It is now a spiritual condition that is causing us to want to support something even if it makes no rational sense, such as men becoming women and women becoming men. We all know that that can't happen. We all know that that's impossible. We all know that we are lying to ourselves if we believe otherwise. So Matt here is having to do what he has always cornered Christians into doing on the atheist experience a million times, placing the onus on them to convince him. The tables are turned now. Andrew Wilson, he's a presuppositionalist. He was smart enough, clever enough, he did his homework enough, he thought about it enough, and he turned the tables and he said, he's essentially saying, oh, Matt, you need to now convince me of this position, which is a position that good luck trying to convince a rational, logical thinking person that men can actually become women and that women can actually become men. So let me continue here.
To trans people as deranged lunatics who will self-terminate if you dare to question them.
How am I wrong, Matt?
Someone
As I pointed out in my last video, it's absolutely hilarious to hear Matt Dillahunty trying to scold somebody and trying to take this moral high ground, which being a good person makes no sense in the atheist worldview to begin with, because they try to base their morality on the animal kingdom. Well, animals all eat each other and no one cares. So it's completely ridiculous on that level. So here he is trying to grandstand and take some higher moral standing than Christians, as if he's more moral than Christians, as if he's more moral than God, okay? So he's essentially claiming here to be more moral than Andrew. Matt Dillahunty, it is just so far from him. It is so beneath him to be smug. If any of you have watched the Atheist Experience on YouTube for 5 seconds, let alone 5 minutes, let alone an hour of clips, there are plenty of clips of Matt flipping people off, hanging up on them, cussing at them. Yeah, it's absolutely just hypocritical to listen to someone like Matt Dillahunty trying to lecture someone as if they are beneath him, as if he is just this incredibly moral, secular humanist and is some amazing example for the rest of us. So let's go ahead and look at some of the atheists in the crowd.
Okay.
I'm not going to address all these guys in the crowd, but I'll look at a few of them here.
Okay, fair enough. For what? Okay. Okay, fair. Go ahead.
Probably being personal. So I didn't hear an argument against secular humanism. I'm not necessarily on board with everything with the secular humanist manifesto. What specifically about the manifesto that he talked about do you find troubling?
It's all lies. It's literally based on non-reality being subjectively interpreted as whatever you want. You can make bold claims.
Specific, please.
I'm giving.
It's implicit within the name itself, secular humanist. Just the term secularism assumes essentially naturalism and materialism, which I've already talked about a lot, which is ultimately Neo-Hinduism. It's that people can supposedly get together without God. This universe somehow created itself. Logic creates itself. Morality creates itself. A bunch of humans. The earth creates itself. A bunch of humans are somehow self-created. And this ultimate, like Brahman, this ultimate impersonal force manifests all of this on its own, temporarily. And in the middle of this meaningless existence, we try to pretend that there's meaning. And the meaning that we try to pretend exists, the meaning we pretend that we should be upholding is this thing called secular humanism, that we should all hold hands, get along, sing kumbaya before we die soon and return back into the nothingness for eternity. Congratulations, secular humanism. It's just Brahman manifested himself in this universe for this momentary time in history, in finite history, caused a bunch of atoms banging around to come together, to become these multicellular life forms who then evolve into animals that eat each other. And then some of those animals eat each other, no one cares, but eventually evolved into other animals who started thinking differently and thought, maybe we shouldn't just eat each other like the other animals do. Really, you say, why should we not eat each other like the other animals eat each other who don't care? Well, because we're secular humanists. Okay, so Brahman brought about all these animals that eat each other, but then over here he brought about these other animals who thought, man, we don't want to be like the other animals that eat each other. We're gonna get along, and we're gonna invent a guitar, and we're gonna stand around a campfire, and we're gonna sing kumbaya, we're gonna hold hands before we return back to the eternal nothingness again. Secular humanism. What's the point in any of this? It's all meaningless. And it's all just atheists trying to pretend that they live in this onist universe that they've never proven is reality. And they do away with the creator-creation distinction. And they think they convince themselves that they're morally good people because the universe had manifested them to help old ladies cross the street and to pay their taxes on time and to have a stable society where there's roads and cars. And then we eventually, shortly after, we all return back to the eternal nothingness again. It's all a grand illusion. Think about how it is no wonder that something like secularism again, where you have this impersonal starting point, bringing about and manifesting all of these things that are now personal momentarily, but there's no creator creation distinction. There's no creator of it all. Therefore, there is no ultimate eternal intended purpose behind an actual by an actual designer, by an actual God, by an actual loving God who created us humans as male and female for a purpose, for a role, for a specific purpose and function. We now foolishly push that out of our beliefs. We push that out of how we want to live our lives. We're no longer accountable to that. So now we're ultimately accountable to nothing. And then all that's left then is for us to live our lives however we decide. It's just that male and female are just a fluke. It's not that God created us male and female with an intended purpose as male and female. No, male and female is just a naturalistic fluke. And it's really up to us to do with male and female as we want. In fact, male and female is really just an illusion. Again, coincides with the secular worldview. It coincides with the idea of oneism. It coincides with Neo-Hinduism. There's no male and female, really. There's no distinctions. Everything is really just blurred. Everything is just one. You see the idea of the Hinduism within secularism. There is no distinctions. Everything is one. Everything is just one. Everything is just blurred together. We get to decide what we are. And then the humanist aspect of it just simply means that, oh, we are the deciders. We are the gods. We get to be the ones that decide what we do, how we think, how we behave, what we are. Because that means that we are then the ultimate deciders of everything, irregardless of logic, irregardless of rationality. We suppress, humanists are suppressing logic, suppressing rationality, and they're inventing their own ideas. Because they're humanists, they have the power. They believe they have the power to invent their own ideas. And their ideas ultimately lead to what? To lying. Lying to themselves, lying to everyone else, and not only that, but expecting and demanding and requiring, vehemently even, that everyone else go along with their lie. It's that bad.
Gaslight the entirety. Are you going to let me answer the question or no?
Go ahead.
If you want to try to gaslight the entirety of humankind, that this falsehood actually exists in descriptive reality, and then say, well, that's science, and we rule with science, we rule with our mind, we rule with our brain. That's absurd. It's absurd. How in the world can you want a doctrine like that to run your life? How?
I'll leave it at that. That is a fantastic question for us to all think about and end on. How can you allow a doctrine like that to run your life? Again, with the secular, which is really just Hinduism, that everything is just material realm, that everything is just one. It's oneism. If everything is just one, you cannot allow, it's impossible for that type of philosophy to have anything run your life. In order for you to run your life well, you need to run your life in accordance to how you were created and designed by your creator, to where there's twoism, the creator-creation distinction. And he created this universe, this world, this earth, us as people, being distinct from animals, with responsibilities and duties as male and female, to have families and to listen and obey God's commands for our enjoyment and for his glory and for the betterment of our relationships with ourselves, with each other, and with him for eternity. Apart from the distinctions that we are able to recognize and walk in and follow in a beautiful way with our creator, with acknowledgement and faith in our creator, the Lord Jesus Christ, we will be able to flourish. Apart from that, and doing away with that, and blurring everything together, which is what secularism does, because it's essentially materialism, it's essentially naturalism, it's essentially Hinduism. It takes away our ability to distinguish between things. It takes away our ability to judge between what is good and right, between what is logical and illogical, between what is rational and irrational. It takes away our ability to do that. It becomes a spiritual condition. Because when we suppress the creator-creation distinction, when we suppress our creator, we become lower to the ground. We become more animalistic. And we are no longer able to distinguish our left hand from our right hand. We become like a really foolish animal that operates entirely off of instinct, not logic, and not morality. Anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for watching another episode of Light of the Logos. Sorry I was gone for a while. I'll try to produce more content soon. I will see you guys on the next one. Take care and God bless.